Good morning and welcome to another edition of the 10,000 Club. This morning I have Kim Anderson and Cindy Beckwith here with me today. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kim.
Good morning.
So in an effort of becoming a pro, 30 minutes at a time, or maybe a little less than 30 minutes at a time sometimes, but today we're going to be talking about negotiating commissions and what you can and can do when you're negotiating commissions on a purchase agreement or not on a purchase agreement. What say you, Kim?
So this is a topic that I'm sure Don has talked about in Livestream. So if you want a little bit more in depth, I would go over to the YouTube channel and just Google commissions, and you'll find some teachings there as well. But we're going to talk about it, give you some practical scenarios. You may not know that this is not allowed. I mean, negotiating is allowed, but it's not allowed as part of the purchase agreement. So the first one to start out with is that let's just give an example. Say you are going to show a property on the MLS. Maybe it's a listing service, a limited service agreement, and they're offering, excuse me, $1,000, but you're showing $300,000 properties and you're expecting to get maybe a 3% commission, right? So you're expecting $9,000 and you've been running this buyer around for a year, writing offers, and now the compensation that's being offered on the property they fall in love with is $1,000. Well, they don't know, they haven't seen it yet. So remember, the first thing is we have to ask for a higher commission. When we see that, we have to ask before we ever go through the doors, right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to accept $1,000 commission. Now we have to show clients all properties that are available, right? So we can't not show them the property. So so I'm going to go back and call the listing agent and say, hey, I have a pre-approved buyer. I'd love to show your listing. I see that you're offering $1,000 flat fee, but I would like to request that you pay my broker a 3% commission of the sales price, right?
Did you hear what she said, Cindy? She said,
Yeah.
I request that you pay who? My
The
broker.
broker.
My broker.
Yep.
So because they are such fantastic people, they go to their seller and they go, hey, this agent has a really awesome buyer. They think they're going to love the house. Their broker is asking for 3%. And let's just say they say, yes, we'll pay the 3% because we want to sell our home. So remember, on a limited service, they're saving a lot of money on their listing side, just like a for sale by owner, right?
Yep.
So is that clear so far? Before we keep moving, does that make sense on how that procedure is? Any questions? Sounds good. So then the next thing we would do is we need to get that in writing before we ever walk through the doors, right? And so one of the ways that we do that is we need to write up, let's see, we're going to write up let me just find my notes here. I kind of lost my spot. So we're just going to write up something on a Word document and we're going to send it over there. And it's going to say, I'm finding my language. I lost my spot. Can you tell? And basically, and we'll get you language, but we're going to send over a document that says that the listing broker agrees to pay 3% of sales price to the broker for this date. And I'm trying to find you the wording for that right now. I just kind of lost my spot.
Because at the end of the day,
I think it's
it
2A.
just has to be agreed in writing prior to walking through the door.
Yes, thank you, Tracy, because I'm not finding my language here. I thought Eric wrote that out for me. So it says, okay, right here it is. Got it. Listing broker agrees to give a 3% commission instead of the 1% offered. That's on the very last page there that we're looking at. Sorry, I did find my spot. So that's what we want to send over. So the bottom line is we want to get that in writing prior. So sometimes there might be a scenario where they say no and you have to charge. If the listing agent won't pay it, or listing broker won't pay it, where else do you think we're going to get that money from? What's the other option?
The buyer has to pay it.
the buyer, right? So
Yeah.
then we'll give you the language where now maybe they're only saying we're going to pay 1.5%, but you're going to plus a total 1.5, but you're going to have to get the other 1.5 from your buyer. So I don't want to confuse you, but just know before that you can ask for more commission, but you have to get it in writing before you walk through the doors with your buyer. And then there are ways that we can do it. Maybe we have to increase the sales price in order to get the other 1.5% from our buyer. So that's probably the hardest one that I chose to start out with. But I guess the main point is that you must ask ahead of time. You can ask and then get it in writing. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Makes sense. Because we've all shown lots of houses to a buyer before, especially in this market. Sometimes you can be working with somebody for a really long time and you haven't found them a house, and then suddenly you find them a house and the commission is really low. And so in that scenario, if you're not able to get the listing agent to offer you more commission in order to get paid, you're either going to have to bump up that sales price, as you said. If it was a $150,000 house and you'd like, another 3,000 or 2,000 in commission, the only way to get it covered is to cover that in concessions with the, permission from your buyer, because essentially then that means your buyer's paying for it.
Right. So that was the other thing, is raising the sale price, and then having the seller can give back 2%, but it's really into the loan, right? It's into the sale price, so your buyer's paying it. So that's number one. The second thing we want to get across is that after you've communicated it properly, we can never negotiate commissions on a purchase agreement. It has to be on a Word document. It can't be part of it. And I know that all of us do this. Sometimes we do it, right? And so let's give an example. Like, let's say we have been offered the MLS offered a 3% co-broke. We're under contract. We're good on that end. But now we get to inspections, and we are $1,000 apart, and we can't. We don't want to lose the deal. We've worked really hard. So both listing agent and buyer's agent said, let's split it. Let's each give $500. Okay. So how would we write that up? Anybody?
Yeah, because you would put it on a Word doc and put it very clearly that both brokers agree, buyer agent and selling agent, to reduce the commission by $500, and then, or whatever amount whatever amount is agreed upon, and then make it clear what that amount of commission will be. So there's no questions. It's clear to buyer agent, selling agent, and their brokers.
Yeah.
So
that's probably the biggest place where I where I see it at, and I see it all the time. And when when you ask somebody on the other side, like, hey, you did this in an addendum, like the commission is between our brokers, not between us as agents. It's really not taught. So the bottom line is, you will come across it. You will stumble into this. You may have to be the pro, being a new agent, helping another agent who maybe didn't know this, but clearly it can be done, and you can agree to do that, but it's really not between you. It's between the broker. So you write it anyway for any scenario, but then have the brokers both sign it.
Yep.
That's the other party can say no, they may not agree, but then you have to think, what is the wisest thing to do to hold this deal together for your buyer, for the seller, all that. And it's an option to make the deal work.
Yeah. Cindy, can you think of a scenario where this has happened to you that might be a good story?
Oh, appraisals. It's happened quite a bit. Recently now they're doing appraisal guarantees, but yeah, if an appraisal comes in short and the seller does not have the proceeds to cover that, or is unwilling to, I don't like to reduce my commission, but I also have to be business minded about it. Would I have this deal? Is this deal going to be dead and not go through? So let's say it was $1,000, just like you said, then, I would check with whether it's my listing or my buyer, and see if the other agent would be willing to reduce commission to make up the difference. If they're not, then I have to make a business decision and decide whether I'm willing, to do that, and if our, our broker is. But in most cases, it's better to save the deal because 0 is 0.
Yeah, right.
So, but yeah, I've had that happen with appraisals quite a bit.
Right. I would just say too, like, especially, it was interesting that she said that, Kim. She said, well, in this market, we pretty much only have appraisal guarantees because, like, my example would be a shortage on an appraisal guarantee. Like, okay, look, we're this far, we're through inspections. Now we're at this, we've hit this wall. There's no way to get around the wall. We have to get over the wall. And the only way to get over the wall is if we agree to it. But in this market, we're really not having that. But that's probably the place that it happens the most. Sometimes inspections, but appraisal guarantee used to be the place we would run into it a lot. And sometimes I will just say that I sometimes have made up the whole difference, especially like sometimes in this market when no one is willing to move and you represent the buyer and you have been hitting your head against a wall, 10, 12 offers, and you can't win. And you finally won, you've won.
Right,
And you have
right.
$3,000 or $4,000 standing between you and a closing
Yeah,
table.
you don't
so
want to
that
lose it.
Yeah, you want to get these people off the, off the treadmill or, what do you call that little mouse thing?
Yeah.
The
And you just
hamster
have to
wheel.
think about, there's usually a way to solve it. I don't ever look at it like, oh no, this is going to go away. You try to work through it and figure out the different possibilities and scenarios in that. And, that's the beauty of real estate. You try to work it out on both sides, listing, buyer, agent, and that's why it's really good to have a good relationship like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And on the subject of commissions, if I'm in a listing appointment and the seller asks me to reduce my commission, I always sell my value and I have a whole spiel for that. But one of the things I say to them is, often we get to the end of a transaction or through inspections and something happens. And if I give you a discount right now, I can't help keep this together. And so that's one of the things I say to them is I have nowhere to go. If you give it up as an agent early, there are so many times where there's something where we can't keep the deal together. And I want to have the opportunity to put my hand in the ring and help save that deal.
Yeah,
So
and
far, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. And a lot of times, that seller and they don't realize the work that you do. And I've had several sellers comment, they get an offer early, but then they say, oh my gosh, Cindy, you did all this and that because you get an acceptance and that. I mean, I don't want to say that's an easy part, but that's just the beginning of the whole transaction. There's so much more to it.
Right. And in today's market, we know the sellers don't like to do repairs. And so I want to have somewhere to go if I need to help my buyer. If there is an absolute deal breaker, maybe there needs a radon system. You just really can't get around that. Mm-hmm. And those are what, $800-900. So maybe if my buyer would pay for $400, I could easily throw in $400 if I'm getting a $6,000 commission. Mm-hmm. So I like to save my negotiations for later, right?
Yeah, because you know how long the road is and how twisty and turny.
It's a long road. Yeah.
You never know. You could. Yeah.
You just don't know. So, so far we're saying you just remember you can negotiate commissions, but it needs to be done not on the purchase agreement. And secondly, consider not giving up your commission early because you probably will need it or you could need it somewhere down the road, right? And some of these, if you're saying, okay, what's the language? Give us a call, give the deal doctor a call, and we'll help you. We do have it here, but as you can see, I've got a whole bunch here, and it just might make you more confused. It's better you call us. We'll give you the exact for what you need and exactly what to do. One of the other things that we get questions on, and the second thing is make sure if you're asking for a commission, it's done prior to showing the property, right? And then another thing that happens is often you have a personal sale and say, we're just keep using 3%, right? So I'm buying a home for myself, but I don't want a commission. I'm going to offer a little bit lower because I don't want to take a commission. I don't need to get paid. Or maybe I'm going to offer full price, but in a competitive situation, by me not taking a commission, that's going to really up my my offer by 3%, right? So one of the things that we can do, it's simple on a personal sale. The addendum simply says 5-star real estate waives the commission offered and agrees to accept a $1 commission on this blank address. The reason we need $1 is for E&O to work, we have to collect something, right? So
Some
that's
kind of
another
commission.
scenario. Yeah. Yeah. Have you anyone ever used that option before?
I haven't, well, I have for others, but
Yeah.
not for myself.
Yeah.
Like
I used
family
it 20
members
years
of
ago when I bought my
buyers.
home. Yep, yep. So that's an easy one. And then another thing that we run into is I've had an agent refer me a property and they want a 25% referral. And then they'll say, well, this is my aunt, so I'm not going to take the referral. I want you to give it back to her as a buyer credit. So that's another scenario that I've run into. And we have the language here for you for that as well. So we want to have that on the referral stating they're giving us a 25% referral. You can just write it on there, but it is that referral is to go back to the buyer as a credit. Just make sure we get that in writing. And then we'll give you the language where we like here's just a quick example. Buyer broker's name is accepting a 2% commission and offering a 1% buyer rebate as a credit to the buyer at closing. So it's not as hard when you take them one at a time. And we do have a little cheat sheet for you, and the deal doctors can give you language. There are just different scenarios where we are negotiating our commissions. So those are the practicals of how and when. But any other scenarios or any thoughts on negotiating commissions? I think one of the best ones is don't give it up too early, right? Don't give it up too early. You work really hard for your money. You show a lot of homes. And then the second one would be, what do you do when you run into a limited service or someone who's offering less than what you're charging your buyer? So these are all really good scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Tracy?
Yeah, I also had, and maybe you've had this too, Cindy. Have you ever had someone show one of your properties that wasn't a member of the MLS or maybe an attorney?
Yes.
So they're not cooperating with us. That's what the MLS is. The MLS is a cooperation. So if you ever have someone come to show your property like that, what would you have them do, Cindy?
I have them, they'll fill out it's like a broker compensation form in that because, like you said, they don't cooperate. And now a lot of them do, if they're on the MLS or on Flex, they do cooperate, so they're protected. But a lot of times, some of the MLSs, even when I showed properties, I send that in advance because I want to get paid for my services. And really, if you don't have it in writing and in paperwork, and if they don't cooperate, they are not obligated to do that. So it's really important. So
and they think just because they just saw it on Zillow and it's 3% because you can see the buyer's agency commission. They think, oh, I'm getting paid 3%. But when you're an attorney, you're still, yes, you can legally write your own offers and whatnot, but they are not represented inside our cooperation. So as long as you get that, again, disclosed in writing that, yes, your seller will agree to pay them before they show the property. Yeah.
Tracy, what do you use? There are some some of the boards have co-op agreements.
Yep. I haven't used those, just a compensation agreement. I've only worked with somebody outside the MLS once, but oftentimes I've had people call me in advance. And I remember the first time they called, I thought, wow, I never even thought of that. Like until it happens, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So in doing so, when I've had other people call in the past, I'll say to them, have you thought about commission? Because, you're not part of the MLS. I'll need to get something in writing from you, et cetera. So I've just used our compensation. We used to have a show and sell or the 5-star compensation agreement that just states how they'll get paid.
Yeah.
And then, so that brings up another place where we have to negotiate a commission is on a for sale by owner, right? Because they're out there, they're not offering us anything. So we need to have that conversation as well. And once you have the conversation, what I do is I call them up. Hey, Mr. Seller, I see you've got this property listed at 123 Main Street. I have a really strong pre-approved buyer that I would love to show this home to. Are you offering a commission to a buyer's agent who brings a buyer in? And they may say yes or no, or often what they say, well, what is your fee?
Yeah.
Hey, my fee for me is 3% plus 295. If you don't like to mess with the 295, give them a whole number that includes the 295, right? And so there's another spot where we need to make sure that we're getting paid, right? And most of the time I have found they say yes. And remember, on for sale by owner, you're going to facilitate probably both sides, even though you're not representing that seller. And I always have them sign that ahead of time. I can say, I'm going to send you over some information through Dotloop. If you would review it and sign it, or prior, I'd like to meet you 10 minutes before my buyer gets here. I'll review this with you. What else, Cindy or Tracy, is important when we go to a for sale by owner? What other disclosure do we need to ask them to sign?
Yeah, and the agency disclosure too. That's very important. And I do exactly what you do, Kim. I call in advance, I talk to them, I kind of explain it to them. I try to meet with them before, just because I want to get a feel for who I'm working with and what it is. And plus it gives me a chance to get inside the house and before my buyers get there, something a little more familiar. But yeah, it's real important with for sale by owners. And I really haven't had I can't think of any issues I've had with for sale by owner. When you sit down and talk with them in business terms and explain everything to them, a lot of times they have no idea, but they're willing, from my experience, that they're willing to cooperate because they know, in most cases, a realtor is going to sell that property regardless. So, but I do the same thing. And then when I do write an offer in that, I go through everything. I explain. So I don't want any confusion whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I like about that too, Cindy, is but what you said about walking into that house and being in that house and explaining to that house seller, you said that too, Kim. You have an opportunity to sell yourself at that moment.
Yes,
they're sizing you up to say, do I like this person? Is this someone I could work with? Or hey, when that buyer comes through, if this buyer likes this house, this person that's standing next to me right now is going to be the person that helps me get from A to B and then all the way to Z. And there's a lot of steps that you've just helped them understand. So in doing so, I always say real estate equals relationships. And so now you're forging a new relationship with that seller while you're standing there. You're letting them know that you're the pro. You've walked through all the documents that need to be done and signed and completed in order for this buyer to complete the sale of the home. So I really like that.
Yeah, and I go in, Tracy, I'll have a folder with my card. I mean, it's professional because like you said, it's first impression. I don't know these people, and my goal is I'm going to work with them and I'm going to be their best friend.
Yeah,
exactly. Right. And that's where I think it's important that they understand we will help. I tell my for sale by owners, I've done a few in my career, and I let them know I am here to help facilitate. But every time I write an offer, first the real estate agency disclosure, then when I present the offer, then when I present investigations for addendum for repairs, I keep reminding them, remember, I'm facilitating, but I do represent my buyer. I think it's really important that they keep understanding, because the confusion comes, well, I'm paying you, then why aren't you representing me? So for sale by owners, we could do a whole class on that. And then once again, if you get to the next step and they want to use Star Title because you're using Star Title, then we need to present an affiliated business arrangement disclosure as well. So I know that this topic is one that we don't talk much about. Don and I are going to repeat this on February 14th on his live stream. So this was just our trial run.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Tracy.
No, that's good. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't think we can learn enough about it. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is don't negotiate anything commission related on your purchase agreement. So when you find yourself in the spot where you feel you need to, then call someone that can hold your hand and lock arms with you and help you get the language right.
Yep. And if you see a commission on the purchase agreement that is less than you're willing to accept, the rule is you must accept, get that in writing prior to ever showing the home. And Code of Ethics says, even if they're offering a less commission, we still have to show them those homes, right? So,
And just
All
make sure it's
right.
in writing and have both brokers sign and
yep. All right, well, this was an interesting topic for a cold we're January, but we're almost to February, right? We're
Yes.
almost there. So there's no question. So we hope everybody has a great day. We do have dot loop training at noon today. It's live with myself and Jill Braybrook, your lovely BA. It will be recorded. And so if you want to tune in there or make sure you catch us later, but we'll be starting that at noon. So, all right, everybody have a great day.
awesome. Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Thanks. Bye, Cindy. Bye,
Bye,
Kim.
guys.
Bye-bye.